I have to blame myself. All right, I'm going to back up just to get highlight here on the thing here. All right, so we are moving from the indicative mood, from the participles into the subjunctive mood, where basically the emphasis is going to be on aspect, and we're going to focus more. We'll see function, or excuse me, form here, which will be complex, but we'll spend more time looking at how the function, how it's being used. And we'll be kind of talking about that. We have in our luo, we have our typical verb, tense, voice, mood, person, and number. In the indicative mood, time is an absolute factor. Present tense, active voice, indicative mood. From the speaker's perspective, it's a certainty or factual information. And then we move to the mood refers to whether or not the speaker's view or perspective or attitude towards the event, whether it's factual, possible, desired, a command, contingent, an if-then statement. We're going to spend some time in all that here today. And so our typical moods, or of course, would be the indicative mood, which we've already covered, the subjunctive mood, which is really going to deal with the possibility or more probability of an event from the speaker's perspective occurring. Optative, we won't spend much time with. It's in the book, and we'll go over later. But basically, optative is where subjunctive is more of a probability, optative is more of a possibility, less of a probability. And of course, the imperative mood is command. We'll get to more of that later. In the indicative mood, the author is expressing a certainty or a fact of some. I broke the window. It's a certainty or a fact from the speaker's perspective. And subjunctive mood expresses an indefinite but possible probable action. If anyone breaks a window, he must pay for it. Well, there's a possibility or maybe even a probability that the window could be broken. This is really more of an if-then statement, a contingent statement. If anyone breaks a window, there's the possibility or probability. Then he must pay for it. And that's going to be in the subjunctive mood. When we get to function, we'll see contingency is one of those, as well as other things. So now we're moving in and we're looking to look at the tense and aspect. All right, and one of the things that we'll find, and the nice thing for us, is that we've already learned all the various tenses. There are really 6 tenses, right? The present, the imperfect, the future, the aorist, the perfect, and the pluperfect. And the good news is we already know those, but only the present and the aorist apply in the subjunctive mood. So that makes it a lot simpler. I do think there is no future. There is no future. There is no future in the subjunctive mood. Yet it's oftentimes referring to a potential event. Well, potential event would be future, but there is no future tense. The present and aorist subjunctives do not communicate time of action. Anything that's non-indicative mood, it's not going to emphasize time. In the present tense, we're going to emphasize progressive or repeated. We refer to that, or grammarians refer to that as imperfective, right? That imperfective aspect, that tense, or not tense, that progressive or repeated kind of action. The aorist we talked about is going to be that tense where that undefined kind of action or that perfective aspect. Simple action with no regard to the process. It's just an event. Now, the other thing about the aorist is in indicative mood, we put an augment in front of it, generally an epsilon, right? Well, why do we do that? Because it's referring to a past time event. Well, that's in the indicative mood. But once you get out of the indicative mood, time is not a primary player. If it is a player, it's going to relate to how it's being used in the sentence, context, or with the verb. In a subjunctive mood, there really is no reference to time. The indefinite nature of the subjunctive usually places it. Okay, why are y'all looking at? I'm frozen. Huh.
No, you're good.
Okay, well, it's frozen on my computer. You guys seeing the changes? What screen are you seeing now? What screen are you seeing?
The one where it says, "Hey."
Well, see, it's frozen. That's the problem.
Oh.
I've already moved like 2, 3 slides. That's not
I was writing down the that thing about the subjunctive mood underneath it.
Okay. Let me see what's going on. Why I'm not. Hold on.
So I want to make sure I heard you right. So it's still not really dealing with time.
Hold on a second. I can't do three things at once.
Also, Jake's Wi-Fi's gone out, so he's going to be coming back. I'm taking a picture of Jake.
All right, I'm going to quit this. Like that. Do it again. Stop share. Let me just try stop share and share it again. See if that share screen. No, I won't because it's mine. So quit time. All right, start quit time again. Okay, that's why. It's not seeing my connection to the iPad anymore. That's why. Fix that. Back up and go back to share screen. Almost there. Oh, I thought it was over there. I don't see it. That's not good. Same problem. Oh, I know why. I think I know why. Now I'll try. Yeah, that's why. All right, we're back to almost normal.
I see it now.
Yeah. All right, we'll continue on then. All right, so let me back up here. All right, so we mentioned that the subjunctive mood typically expresses some sort of possibility, more often a probability. There's various ways it can function, one of which is contingency, like if this, then that. It's kind of what's being portrayed here. If anyone breaks a window, then he must pay for it, or he must pay for it. So we see that there's a possibility of a broken window, and then the results would be that he's got to pay for it. We also find a tense and aspect here for in a present tense subjunctive mood. The aspect is going to function in an imperfective aspect, that is the progressive or repeated action, whereas in the aorist tense, the aspect, the kind of action, is going to be more of that simple kind of action, undefined. It's just an event that we're not giving any detail towards. And so the indefinite nature of the subjunctive usually places the possibility action in some sort of future rather than past or present, even though there's no future tense here. If anyone breaks a window, well, that's obviously a possibility, and it can't be present or past because it would no longer be a possibility; it'd be a reality. So, right now, the reality is no one's broke the window. But if anyone does, that's a possibility or probability. That would be a future kind of event. But that's not saying it's in the future tense. All right. Let me pull all this up. For example, okay, if we think about the subjunctive, it communicates sort of this indefinite kind of action that's not always an uncertain kind of action. For example, in Hatan de Eltae, there's Eltae from Erkamai, and there's our subjunctive. We're going to show how to recognize it in a minute, okay? In which that Hatan plays a really important role to recognizing it. But when he comes, referring to the Spirit, of course, when he comes, the Spirit of truth, he will guide you into the whole truth. So there's this view, or that's a definite, it's not an uncertain action. It's a possibility or probability that, and of course, the when is referring to an indefinite kind of action when it does occur. Pull up this. Okay. All right. So, subjunctive moods in relationship to the tense. There are only three tenses. There is there is a present, which is going to talk about the imperfective progressive kind of action. The aorist tense we talked about is going to have more of a simple or undefined, which would be the perfective kind of action. There is no perfect subjunctive in the New Testament. And we're going to emphasize here more is the function. A subjunctive mood will often be used to express purpose, why this is occurring, or result. What the result of the event occurred, or the condition. Conditional, if this, then that. So we'll find these kind of functions being used in subjunctive often, and we're going to go over those in a minute. All right, let's talk about the form now. When we talk about present active form in the indicative, and we're going to change it to a subjunctive, all we do, and it's quite basic, is we lengthen the connecting vowel. That's it. Okay, here comes. I guess none. I thought it's okay. We're going to lengthen the connecting vowel. So the this was an omicron, right? It got lengthened to an omega, and so it's already lengthened here. So that is the subjunctive. We'll talk about how to recognize the difference later. There are other clues rather than just the lengthening of the connecting vowel. Luace, there's our connecting vowel, and we see the connecting vowels lengthened to the eta, and then of course we end up with the iota subscripting, and we get luace, and that is the subjunctive form of luace. Lua, there's our connecting vowel. Again, the epsilon lengthens to the eta, and again we get the
subscript.
Thank you, subscript iota. The only difference is we don't have the sigma at the end, right? So, luace, luace, lua, lua. Luamen, there's a connecting vowel, lengthens to the omega, luamen, luomen. Luete, lengthens to the eta, luete. And luusi, luusin, lengthens to the omega, you get luosi, or luosin. And that's the form, and that's really all there is to it. We'll do the passive, but it's the same thing. All we're doing is lengthening the connecting vowel. And that's one of your major clues. It's not the only major clue, but when you look at the form of the word itself, it's the lengthening of the connecting vowel. And so when we do the present active subjunctive, we're going to have luo, luace, lua, luomen, luete, and luosin, or luosin. And basically, the present and aorist subjunctive form for the ame verb is very, very simple. It's nothing more than the endings or the connecting vowel lengthened with the case endings, right? So it's luo, ace, a, omen, ete, oc. And that's really the ame in the subjunctive form. And when we look at subjunctive forms in the middle present, middle passive, we're doing the same thing. we're using the same middle passive primary endings, just like we use the active primary endings. And we're just linking connecting valves. The omega, omicron goes to omega, we get luomai. The lua, actually it's already lengthened, so you get lua. So, luetai lengthens, and you get luetai. Luameta becomes luometa. Lueste becomes lueste. And luontai becomes luontai. And again, all you did is lengthen the connecting valve using the same, in this case, the primary middle passive endings, where in the active, you're using the primary active endings. All right, so when you put it all together, for our active, present active subjunctive, basically all we did is lengthen our connecting valve, and that is all we do to it. It's not complex. There are some cases where that might be a little difficult to recognize. In some cases, as well as even the lua in some cases. However, there are other clues that we're going to get to in a minute that will just make it very clear. And so the middle passive subjunctives, luomai, lue, luetai, luometa, lueste, and luontai. So this should not be overly complex for you. You've already done all this before. We're using the same primary personal endings. We're just linking and connecting. All right. So go ahead.
Unlike, first off, Jake is backstage.
I didn't see him. I'm sorry. Let's keep him there.
Yeah. Second, on a test, it's not. If it was to ask like, what are the connecting vowels, we wouldn't say omicron epsilon. We would just go with the lengthened form of omega iota or eta.
Yeah, basically connecting vowels are going to be the lengthened connecting vowel. So I don't know if the test is going to ask that.
No, I'm just saying, like, it's not going to be omicron or epsilon. It's going to now be omega iota or eta. Not iota, eta.
Yeah. Okay. Welcome back, Jake. Sorry I had you backstage. My window was shrunk, so I didn't see you. All right, now, okay, now when we're talking about the aorist form. Now remember, the aorist has a tense formative, right? What was the tense formative, Jake? What was the tense formative in the indicative mood for the aorist? Do you remember?
It was like sigma alpha, right?
There you go. That's exactly right. Now, in the subjunctive, it's just the sigma. Again, we've lengthened the connecting vowels, and now we're adding a tense formative to recognize the aorist. Now, in the indicative mood, we not only have the sigma alpha for a first aorist, which would be regular verbs, and the second aorist, which were the irregular ones. We didn't have a tense formative. We had a different tense stem. But in the indicative mood, we also had the augment, the epsilon. You don't have the augment in the subjunctive mood, but you do have the tense formative, the sigma, and you do have the lengthened connecting vowel. So really, again, not hard to recognize, not hard to remember. There are going to be other clues that will be just red flags that will stand out. And we'll show you those as we move forward here. So in the middle passive subjunctive, again, all we did is we lengthened the connecting vowels and we used our primary personal endings from the middle passive side. And so you get luoma, lue, luetai, luometa, lueste, and luontai. And
Are those translations in the book, by the way?
Yeah.
They are?
We say the translations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Column there.
Yeah, they're in the book. I don't know if they're in that chapter or not, but yeah. I don't think this chapter.
That's like the hardest thing for me is.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Every chapter, at least in the participles, there wasn't really a translation. It was just like, well, you can, they gave you some.
Well, yeah, that's kind of where I was with it.
But here's the thing, guys. Number one, think about the tense and the aspect. The tense is present, and it's a perfective, imperfective kind of aspect, so it's ongoing, right? If it's in a perfect tense, it's not just on, it's combinative. In other words, it has a completed action with ongoing results or impact to the speaker's perspective. And so you have to be able to, in English, bring that kind of aspect out. And so if it's a present tense, it's just, he sees or is seeing. Or here it'd be he loose or is loosing. And when we do the subjunctive mood, he may or might loose or he may be loosing, kind of thing. So you're just trying to bring out that tense and that aspect. That's the two things you got to focus on, besides the voice, right? Whether it's active, middle, or passive.
And so if we were to be given a oh man, I don't know. So this is the active here. May or might be loosing. Would the
Well, hold on now. The B is going to be associated with a middle passive kind of form, right? May or might be loosened. Where if we go in the active, we would say.
oh, that said active.
No, that's a. Is it not changing again? Yeah, it's changing.
No, it's changing.
Okay, in the active.
I think I know what I was missing. The chart said active, and the top of the page said middle passive. That's what I was.
No, it didn't.
We'll see. We'll see.
We'll see. We'll go back and we'll prove one of us wrong, and it won't be me.
All right.
We'll find out. We'll find out. I hate all this stuff here. So bear with me.
No problem.
All right, here's the active one, right? This is active, and these are the primary active endings, okay?
Uh-huh.
Now we move to the middle passive.
I should screenshot it. Okay.
I took one, Jake. I can text it to you later.
All right.
Leave me a screenshot. There you go.
See? Yeah, it says active right there in the voice. That's what I was confusing.
What says active as? Middle passive. What are you talking about?
It says, no, down there in the columns. It says voice activate. You see it? It's off there to the left.
Oh, here. Okay, all right.
Yeah, that got me confused.
Well, you're actively saying.
Don't believe your lying eyes. Okay. It says middle passive. I even put it in blue.
Oh, okay. All right. So we're going somewhere now. Okay.
Yeah. There's a method to it, but yeah, I gotta fix that.
I was like, if that's active, how do you translate it passively?
No, that's
welcome to Greek.
You may be being loosing.
All right. Okay. All right. So aorist active subjunctive. Luso, luces, luce, luso ben, luceete, luso osim. Okay, we're using the primary personal endings from the active, but it's an aorist. There's our sigma, not sigma alpha, but sigma. Transformative, right? Transformative is before the connecting vowel, and in the middle. Okay, we got luomai, and there's the aorist, lusomai, lusetai. Again, transformative is before the lengthened connecting vowel. And so here we have aorist active. See, that's right, active. I'm being sarcastic. Again, lengthening. We're using our primary active endings, and this time we're adding the tense formative before the connecting vowel. That's all we're doing to it. And so we get lusomai, luce, lucetai, lusometa, lucete, Lusesta and Lusuntai. And in the passive form, we do the same thing, but now just add the transformative sigma for the aorist, and we make it passive. What?
Oh, it's glitching out on me again. Hopefully my Wi-Fi. Oh, I want to ask a question on the translation a couple slides ago. Yeah, that one. Yeah, that one. I may loosed. I might loosed. I was wondering how to use that in
In a sentence?
my Wi-Fi is bugging out.
Like maybe
still
use
there?
it like I might have loosed it, or
Well, the have would make it more of a perfect.
Sorry, y'all still there?
Yeah.
My Wi-Fi is glitching.
Okay.
Yeah, how do you use I may loosed or I might loosed in a sentence?
So all we're trying to do here is show the aorist, and then it's typically a complete kind of action. Now, it may not be an ED function. Context is going to have to figure that out. The may or the might is reflecting the subjunctive kind of action. So we're going to come to some sentences that will try to do this. So let me get to the sentences, because I don't want to try to make something up that I don't know what I'm talking about. So give me a few minutes and we'll see if we get there. Okay. All right. So in the middle subjunctive, we have our tense formative. It comes before the connecting vowel. We have our linking connecting vowel. Everything else is the same, right? Again, for translation purposes, because it's aorist, we typically put it in a past kind of tense. Even though time really isn't a factor, there's no augment here. But that's just how English translation kind of works. However, your context may not really allow that. You'll have to get context. But the may or might is reflecting the subjunctive function. I may be loosed for myself or oneself. That's that middle, you're doing it to yourself kind of thing. So each one of these, the tense formative is going to tell you the tense being used, and then the personal endings, the person, number, voice, all that's going to be, you got to consider all that in your translation. And so in the passive, not only do we have that's middle, okay. Passive, not only do we have the wait a minute, let me see if I got something different here. Okay, the passive replaces the sigma with the theta. It doesn't have both. So our tense formative, the sigma is the theta. That reflects the passive. So remember, in the aorist, you have the first aorist and the second aorist, right? The first aorist, just like the perfect, first and second perfect. First is your regular form. Second is your irregular form, where really you're dealing with a different tense. First aorist, you're using the tense formative. But you also have a difference between the middle and the passive, where the passive is going to use, typically it's going to be a theta eta, theta epsilon, or just a theta. And that's what we see here, the theta being used. All right, so middle subjunctive, and it's middle subjunctive, and we're using our middle primary passive ending, middle passive endings. And there's no theta, so we know it's middle. If we want the passive form, we're going to add the theta to it. And you get lutho, luthes, luthe, luthomen, luthete, luthosai. That does occur where the accent does change in the passive here to the circumflex.
Hey,
Irregular
Dave,
form.
Quick question.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Again, my Wi-Fi is glitching out, so bear with me. I wanted to ask about, so the present has, we've talked about this, but in the subjunctive mood, the present has active, middle, passive, and the aorist has active, middle, and passive. Is that right?
Right. That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe I'll ask Damien later on how to translate all of them. I should have screenshotted your PowerPoint, but
You got the PowerPoint. It's in the LMS.
Oh, okay, good. Now I'll go back and look at it.
It's in the LMS.
Okay.
All right, so our second errors are the irregular forms where we're really using a different tense stem. So Lombini, it becomes Lombai, where we don't have the need for any of that. Genetai, there we have a change in the tense stem where we have the ge and then eta. So we don't have the tense formative is what I'm saying. But you still have the lengthen connecting vowel. Excuse me, right? Lengthen connecting vowel. And we're still using our primary endings, whether it be middle passive or active, the voice. Now, you remember contracts vowels, right? The alpha, the epsilon, the omega, where the contract vowels. Well, you have the same thing here in your subjunctive mood. Here's our contract vowel, right? Agapao, poeo, right? We have the same thing here, except now we've added it's still the contract vowel, but it's lengthened, and then we add our tense formative with the personal ending. It's nothing new than what we've already done all this. It's just now we're adding the subjunctive in the subjunctive form. Because this right here, poie, with the personal ending poieo, there is poie, and we have our lengthened contract vowel with our tense formative and our personal ending. That's all that is. Remember liquids? Okay, same thing. Liquids are the rho, the mu, and the nu. When the stem ends in a rho, a mu, or excuse me, lambda, rho, mu, or nu. And so there's our nu, there's our lambda, and basically I'm trying to remember now. I didn't go back and look at this. I don't remember why this entrance here. I can't remember now. That might be in our book. And now I'm looking short on time to look at it. I'm going to look at this, and I'm going to ask Damien and Andres to bring that up. Okay, on the liquids again. Sorry about that. All right. Aorist passive subjunctive. All right. Passive is going to use the tense formative theta, and that's all it is. So we got our lengthened connecting vowel, tense formative theta, and you get lutho, luthase, luthe, luthomen, luthete, and luthosin. And I may or might be, right? There's the first person. May or might is going to be the subjunctive. Be is going to be the passive form, and loosed is going to be the aorist tense. That's why it's written that way. Now, obviously, context is going to help you determine if that's a good English reading. That's the difficult part, and it may not be.
And that was
go ahead.
For later purposes, that also said active on the chart. That's okay. It's okay. I just wanted to point it out.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. No, I appreciate it because I'll have to go back and find it. All right, so that's about how translating, okay, the subjunctive, right? Recognizing the form, I don't think you really have much trouble with it. For the most part, the lengthened connecting vowel, for the aorist, we're going to have the sigma. For the first aorist, the sigma. The second aorist, we just have to change in the stem, but we still have the lengthened connecting vowel. The passive aorist is going to have the theta for the tense formative. That's the first aorist. Second aorist, which is the irregular form of the change in the stem, but we still have the lengthened connecting vowel. For the most part, that's going to be pretty recognizable. Maybe not right away or right up front, but what will make a difference is the how it's used in the sentence. there are other major clues. Let's talk about, though, in translating, we emphasize aspect in the subjunctive, and because there is no absolute time. In the present tense, we talk about it's continuous and progressive. That's that imperfective aspect. And sometimes that can be a little difficult to bring out in English. That's where I know that you struggle a lot, Jake, and I know that Sam does, and I do as well. The good news, all I could say is that unless we're going to really go far, we're probably not going to be translating the manuscripts independently on our own. And we want to use other tools anyway. How does the NIV do this? How does the King James do this? How does the ESV do it? How does the New American Standard do it? I like to look at all those and try to figure out, okay, why they do it this way. And that's where you need to understand the tense, what tense it's in, what voice it's in, number, and what kind of aspect is being done. The aorist tense, we mentioned, is undefined. That's that perfective, just undefined. And although time is not a factor, we still, in English, often will put the ed to it because in English, time is just there all the time. And it's a little harder to do the subjunctive mood in English. But what we're going to see is we're going to have two different kinds of clauses with the subjunctive mood. Dependent clauses, in other words, they don't stand alone, and independent clauses, they do stand alone. And here's one of your major clues, that hina. If you have a hina, you can expect the verb near it is going to be in the subjunctive. And most likely it's indicating purpose. In order that we can understand better, we take the Greek class. It's the purpose, or it could be result. Purpose and result are pretty closely linked. And sometimes difficult to differentiate, at least for me. If you see an on or anything that ends in an on, then most likely you're going to have a subjunctive verb with it. And it occurs often in a conditional sentence, if then. If Jake's Wi-Fi stays on, Jake will be able to speak more often. And future, it refers to a more probable future event, even though there's no future tense. If something might happen, then something else will definitely happen. So if there's a possibility, a probability of some future event, if that does occur, then something else happens. That's the nature of a conditional sentence, right? We're going to look at conditional sentences. There are different classes of conditional sentences. And then there's what's called the present general. This is all in the book, by the way. The present general type of dependent clause. It states a general truth, an axiomatic truth, a timeless truth. And so we're going to look at some of those. I don't know if we have them in here or not. I don't think we do. If we go to the book and page, on page 359, we see the hina and hina, here the hina. And the subjunctive. It's almost always followed by subjunctive and can indicate purpose as well as result. They use the example, and this is where who gave you this authority that you do these things, from Mark 11, verse 12. It's more of a purpose clause. Who gave you the authority that you can do these things? Or they asked him from Matthew 12, verse 10, so that they could accuse him. It's the purpose. They asked him a question, they tested him, so they could accuse him. And hina also can be translated often more idiomatically, lest they become discouraged. Fathers, do not provoke the children, Colossians 3:21, lest they become discouraged. Then the hina, or any on, is going to be a subjunctive related. And typically, hina is going to be the conditional. That's going to be a major clue for you, if then. For example, in the book, we have 1 John 1, verse 19, verse 9. If we confess our sins, and he is faithful to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. Right? It's conditional. If we confess our sins, then he's faithful to forgive us and cleanse us from all unrighteousness. And then a timeless truth, an axiomatic example. is given in. I thought they had one here. I don't see it. I may have missed it. I don't see it. I thought I had one. I don't remember where it is, and I can't think of the top of my head of one. We'll see it later. So here are the clues. Number one, a lengthened connecting bell. Number two, if you see a hina clause, interpreter will say that or in order that, an offensive purpose could be a result. Et on is an if-then statement, or could be when. When this occurs, then that. Hatan, whenever. There's the on. There's the on. There's the on. There's the on. So hatan, whenever. Hosan, whoever. Hupu on, wherever. Eos or eos on, until. Those are always going to be red flags in your sentence that, hey, there's a subjunctive here. So even if you don't right away recognize the subjunctive, you'll see these other clues associated with it. And the on or the on is going to be an if then. He-on, hena is going to be that in order that or purpose kind of clause. And these other ons obviously will be the subjunctive whenever, whoever. Whenever you do this, this occurs. Whatever. The other thing I want to talk about, what happens, Samuel, when you negate, put two double negatives in English? What happens to the double negatives, you know?
Becomes a positive, or
Yeah, it negates each other, right?
Yeah.
It's positive. Not in Greek. When you put two double negatives, then it's going to be emphatic. And the other thing is that ooh, we learned as no or not, and it's used in the indicative mood. It's not used with the non-indicative moods. May means no or not, and it's used with the non-indicative, like the subjunctive mood. But when they are together, even in the subjunctive mood, ooh, may, so the aorist is a very strong negative. So it's not just no, it's no or never. It's a very strong emphatic negation. So they don't cancel each other, they emphasize the other.
it's like that. I can't remember what it is, but like when it talks about he himself.
Well,
No.
yeah, okay.
So it's more of an emphasis on the no part.
Well, he himself is not a no, but yeah, you're talking about adjectival intensive, where the himself, the autu, would be, or auton would be used to intensify he himself. It's also, we find, verbs include in Greek, verbs include the first person, second person, third, singular, plural, and so you don't need to say I am. If you have a me, it is I am. But if you add ego a me, then you're emphasizing I am, and normally it's in contrast. It's I am in contrast to not something else or someone else, but I am. So it's either emphatic or contrasting in some sense. Now, when we translate, we were looking at dependent clauses before, right? The hena clause, the eon, if-then conditional sentence. Those are all dependent clauses. And these are the major clues that we'll see, including negation. If there's a may, then it's not going to be an indicative mood. It could be a subjunctive or some other mood, imperative. But there's also independent clauses that use the subjunctive mood. And these are very common. One is called a hortatory subjunctive. Hortatory subjunctive. Have you ever led a prayer, Jake, and you said, let us pray? Oh,
Yeah, I'm muted.
Okay.
Yes, indeed I have.
That's a hortatory subjunctive. Okay, it's an exhortation. Let us pray. That's what. So a first person subjunctive can, and normally it's the beginning of the sentence, I think, can function as an exhortation. It's an independent clause. Let us pray. Shall we all bow our heads and let us pray, or pray? That would be that, or let me. Typically, that's how we would translate it to emphasize this hortatory speech subjunctive. Also, there's a deliberative subjunctive. It's when the answer to the question is uncertain. When we don't know what the answer is. In a lot of the Greek, you have rhetorical questions where Jesus will ask a rhetorical question, but the answer is no. I can't think off the top of my head. I wish I prepared for that. I didn't. Where Jesus may ask the question with the expected answer is known by everybody. But sometimes there's a question that's answered where the answer is the question that's asked and the answer is just not known. It's uncertain. The
They
question then
use in the book they use
okay.
Matthew 6:31.
Okay.
What should we eat or where should we drink?
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. I was going to go there next in the book. I forgot about it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I've forgotten about it, so I appreciate it. But to me, a deliberative subjunctive is where the answer to the question is just not known. It's uncertain. And so they use the subjunctive mood for that verb in that case. And so, as Jake or Samuel pointed out on page 361, a hortatory subjunctive, let me take the speck out of your eye in Matthew 7:4, or let us go across the other side, Mark 4:35. They're not commands, they're exhortations, they're encouragements. Let us go to the other side. And then the deliberative subjunctive is when the question is asked, but the answer is not readily known. Therefore,
Dave,
do not worry. What should we eat, or what should we drink, or what should we wear? What were you gonna say, Jake?
are there certain aspects of the Greek that would fall over in principle to the Hebrew? What I mean by that is, in Genesis, when it says, let us make man in our image, that let us, would that same translation, let us, imply something different in the Hebrew than it would under the hortative subjunctive in the, or is it essentially conveying the same thing, but maybe under a different principle?
Yeah, there's not a direct correlation, but grammar has a lot of commonalities across all languages. And so we find a lot of commonality, but it's just done differently in the Hebrew. So they don't have like a subjunctive. They don't have moods, for example, in Hebrew. And actually, the verbs are much easier to recognize and to translate. But I do not know if there's like a Hebrew correlation to a hortatory subjunctive in the Greek. There may be. I just don't know. I haven't looked at it. So.
It's a very nuanced question, so I didn't expect you to know. But ultimately, I mean, English is different than both of them, so we do our best with what we got to try to convey.
Exactly. All right, so let me go through these kind of in the next few minutes because you guys have another class coming up. Let's talk about how they're used and here's some examples. Purpose or result clause would be a dependent clause using a subjunctive, and we'll see typically the hina, very common, or sometimes the hopos, be more aware. The purpose, one way you could translate a hina clause is purpose. That's one way. Hina, for example, I can read the whole thing for time. Hina me hamartete. Well, that is in order that you might not sin. There's the purpose. I write these things to you that you might not sin. But it also can be done for results. So a hina clause, again, the subjunctive. Hopos, for example, is hopos idosin humon. Let your light shine before people so that the results would be they might see your good works. Now there's a nuance between purpose and result. I got that, and that's a decision the translator has to make. Is this reflecting the purpose or the results? Is the purpose, is that so that they might see your good works, or is that a purpose or no result? It's a nuance. I don't know. The indefinite clause is where you have the has-on, hotan, os-on. Any of these ons always bring a subjunctive. Almost always. I think always. I don't want to say always. So you'll find being used as a relative clause, host on, whoever. It's a relative clause. Whoever does this, all right? So host on a me dexectai. That is there's the subjunctive. There's our LinkedIn connecting vowel. There's our primary passive endings, my saitai. That's a third person singular, right? Third person singular. In our LinkedIn connecting vowel, there's the same word, except it's in the indicative mood. So hosan, whoever receives me, there's our emphatic me, right? Because we have me actually embedded in here, third person singular. Whoever receives me receives the one who sent me. That would be the relative clause, whoever. Here's our clause, whoever. Indefinite clauses, hosan, hotan, elson, can be also temporal. Hotan is whenever. So hotan case thing. That is whenever you pray, right? There's pray from parsuke. Whenever you pray, do not be like the hypocrites. The emphatic negative, the double negative, the ume. Again, u is used for the indicative, may is for non-indicative, but when they're together, regardless of the mood, it's going to be an emphatic. It emphatically denies something that will occur. Ume ide, idete. And so seeing you will see and never perceive. That's theologically, this can be really significant. What's the passage? I think they got a passage in the book here with that. That's a theological significance. I think I was reading this earlier. I don't remember if it was in this book or somewhere else. Yeah, it must have been somewhere else. I'm trying to think where it is. Where's the passage that where Lord will never leave you. You may leave him. I don't remember where I saw that. Anyway, my point being is that double negative in some cases can be theologically significant. And so sometimes we might just say, he will not leave you, or never leave you. But really, it's just very emphatic. He will never leave you. And deliberative, okay? Another use in the subjunctive, running out of time here. And so, eso ti then, there's the what should I do with Jesus who's called to Christ? So he's asking the Pharisees, the crowd, what should I do with the one who's called to Christ? And it's a rhetorical question.
Hebrews 13:5 says, keep your life free from the love of money and be content with what you have. For he said, I will never leave you nor forsake you.
That might be it. It says, I don't know if that's a double negative there.
It's also in Deuteronomy 31:8, but that's a Hebrew.
Okay. Okay. Conditional sentences, if then. This would be a negative, if then not. On ego doxasto, right? If I glorify myself, there's our conditional sentence, then my glory is nothing. Conditional sentence with on may, huta, may osin. Unless these men remain in the ship, then you cannot be saved. All right, I did put the slide in the PowerPoint for you. All right, so when you have, and I want to go over this real quick, and you have this, you can look through it. So the if clause is called a protasis. The then clause is called an apodosis. That's just the grammatical names for it. All right. You have 4 different classes of conditional sentences. The first class is one that we'll see often, where the protasis has the A in the indicative mood plus any tense negated by oo. Well, that's the indicative mood I expect to. The apodosis will be in any mood or any tense. And there's an assumption of truth. If this is true, then this must be true, right? And there's an example for you. Second class, A plus the indicative mood in the past tense negated by may. And now we have on plus the indicative in the past tense, contrary to fact. If this, let us assume that then this is not true. Let us assume this is not true, then that. Now here's where we get in subjunctive. Third class, on plus the subjunctive, any tense, right? The present aorist tense, where the apodosis is in any mood or any tense, and there's an uncertain fulfillment, but still likely. Mark 5:28 for example. Then the fourth class, A plus the optative, which is very few, and that's in the protasis, and the protasis also has O plus the optative. And ultimately, it's a possible condition for 1 Peter 3:14. This is the one that you want to be familiar with. That's the third class conditional sentence. You want to be familiar with really the first, second, third more than anything else. Fourth is very few, but this is going to be our subjunctive. We use on in the apodosis, but the apodosis will be in any mood or any tense, and there's an uncertainty associated with it being fulfilled. If this, then this might happen. It's still likely, but it's not known. Mark 5:28 agrees on example. Okay, I know it's a lot, and I apologize for maybe not covering it as well, but we'll go back through it. Probably the Damian and Andres will fix everything I did wrong.
I think you did your best given the sheer amount of material in the chapter.
Yeah, I thought about breaking this into 2 chapters. I really did in 2 weeks, but we still have 6 more chapters to go through, or 5 more chapters to go through, and so
I was looking. I was looking at the master subjunctive chart.
Yeah, I meant to have that in the slide, and I forgot to put it in the slide.
Okay.
I don't think I have
it looks like there's 8 paradigms, and then there's 9 if you include ME, which technically you know ME if you know the other ones. And then there's the conventive subjunctive, which is very rare apparently, to make 10 paradigms. It's quite a bit. I'll be doing some studying this week, that's for sure.
Yeah. Here's the thing that really. Go ahead. Here's the thing you really want to just hang on to. Subjunctive, recognize it's going to be twofold. Number one, you got the linked and connecting vowel, and you're going to see other clues in the sentence. To dependent clause or an independent clause, you're going to see one of those. Hina clause is very common. That's a dependent clause. Any of the ons, the et-ons, it's also a dependent clause. But kohan, whenever, whoever, excuse me, those are relative clauses. All those clauses are going to be typically included subjunctive. And so finding them is not that hard. Seeing them is not overly complex. Translating them may take some effort in thinking about, okay, what's trying to be represented here? But remember, subjunctive is dealing about the possibility or probability of an event that hasn't occurred. And so typically, even though it's in the present tense, which refers to not time, this is where it's not referring, present is not talking about time. And for the subjunctive mood, it's talking about aspect. That is the ongoing or imperfective aspect. That's the important part. That's why you could think about in the present tense, but yet it's a future possibility. And it's not a future tense. Because present tense is only emphasizing the aspect. That is the imperfective, ongoing kind of aspect, progressive kind of aspect. And the same thing with the aorist, the perfective, that is the undefined kind of. It's not emphasizing time, it's emphasizing the kind of action but yet you might still have time related some future potential. So I think if you kind of keep that in mind, then going through this might help. The master non-indicative verb chart with the subjunctives is really going to talk about form. How do you recognize it? I don't think that's going to be overly complex. Yeah, you got to look at the form, whether it's a passive, it has the theta for the aorist. But you can see the lengthened connecting vowel, and then you have other clues that are almost always there. I think that'll cover that.
Yeah, you did really well. I've got 1,000 questions, but again, I'll save them, and I appreciate all you do and all the work you have.
Well, I appreciate you guys because it is a lot to cover, and each time I do it, I try to get a little better at it. We could,
Yeah, you're doing great. You're doing great. And honestly, I don't want to speak for Sam. I'm really enjoying the class. I'm learning a lot. The
Good.
most frustrating thing is whenever I'm very analytical. When I come across, like, oh, there are these two words that, usually most of the time imply subjunctive, and I'm thinking, oh boy, so there's more, and I'm okay with a lot of information as long as it's comprehensive. But sometimes when there's little pieces, I'm like, oh, I wish I had that answer, even if it's insignificant. That's the stuff that bothers me.
Yeah, and I'm very similar in that in a lot of things, and so when I have time, sometimes I'll spend the time to research something, but ultimately, if it's insignificant, I'm just like, okay, I'm moving on.
Right.
But generally speaking, if you can find the bucket that everything fits in, then you're really pretty good. And so remember, you're talking about the various components of a verb, right? The tense, the number, the person, the mood, and all these things. Ultimately, those help define your translation. You just have to take them one at a time, and it's just like a puzzle. You put it together. And translation is an art, so you'll never have necessarily the same translation as everyone else. But there's science to it as well. There's very consistent rules that are existing, especially in form, but as well as in translation. But there is an art context that will make a big difference. I don't know. I don't have an answer because I'm not a scholar, but I understand enough to present the basics anyway. So.
Well, thank you, Dave.
All right, thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Dave.
4 more minutes for your class, so go enjoy it. Go therefore and proclaim truth.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.